Hey, and welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea Podcast, an adulting advice podcast production. I'm Dani Sheriff, and this is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome back. I am here with Meg Doll, who just before this call said, I don't know how my dog is going to behave, but we'll see. And she's released her first bark, but I think it's going to be fine. Welcome to the show, Meg.
Let's hope she behaves for us. I'm sorry if she doesn't.
It probably bothers you more than it bothers anyone else.
It really bothers me.
All good. How are you today?
I am great. I'm super honored to be on the show, being interviewed by you, because wow, like what a journey this whole HA thing has been for both you and I. And I think at the beginning of our journeys, like, would we ever imagine that we're on this, incredible podcast called the HA Podcast?
I really got that search engine optimization name down. Crushed it. It probably should have been like how to solve hypothalamic amenorrhea podcast or something, but it's still going to be good. It's just too many words. You should see me how many times a day I have to type that full word out.
Yeah.
This title doesn't need to be any longer. Well, I'm excited that you're here. And so, yeah, it's so cool that your path got to cross with mine, and I'm having like my third podcast with you at this stage. But it's gonna be great. And you're definitely my first choice for talking about as a nutritionist and from a like mindset, spiritual point of view. So on this show, I'm chatting with registered dietitians, nutritionists, functional nutrition therapy practitioners, like they keep adding a word onto that, health coaches, exercise physiologists, like different perspectives from all the different health and wellness professions, and just chatting with people from all those different perspectives in the hopes that not only does everyone learn a little bit more every time and feel a little bit more encouraged that they're on the right track every time, but they also get an idea of maybe even what approach or who they could work with that would be best for them and their needs. So that's the goal.
Well, again, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, well, with that, tell us exactly who you are, what you do, and how you are entangled in this world.
Yeah, so I am Meg Doll, and I started off, so my journey really starts with a history of anorexia, and that kind of put me into the world of studying nutrition, going to university. I actually studied dietetics in university, and then at the end of my degree, I just realized that I really wanted to continue learning, and that I was very much interested in like the holistic approach to health. And what I mean by that is I really wanted to understand like how food really worked within my body. You know, coming from a history of mental illness, I wanted to learn how I could really use food to support my body. So that's what I mean by being really interested in like the holistic world of food. So I started studying holistic nutrition, and I became a registered holistic nutritionist in 2014. And I started my practice from there. And just because of my history, I was always working with women with eating disorders, or like have a history of eating disorders, and then found themselves in like this kind of quasi recovery or still a disordered eating place in their life. So I really love working with women because I've totally been there for many years of my life, actually. And then just in 2018, I came to this realization. I kind of had that one of those wake up moments that so many of us have throughout our health journeys. And I no longer identified with an eating disorder. I did not have an eating disorder, but I did not have my period. And I knew that that was not something that was good, that, it's not normal to not have a period. And what really freaked me out, Dani, is that I had gone so many years. It was actually 12 years. I had gone 12 years of my life without a period. And what freaked me out was the fact that I knew it wasn't normal to have a period, but because I had gone for 12 years without a period, it actually started to feel normal for me to just not have a cycle, right? And that freaked me out. And I was like, okay, I need to take things seriously and do what I need to do to get my period back. And so that's really what really landed me to where I am, and kind of, like you said, entangled me in this HA world. And when I decided that I wanted to work towards getting my period back, I also came across the certification for a certified spiritual coach. And it was really pulling me in. One of my favorite women, Jessica Flanagan, was the founder of this institute that was offering the certification. And for years, I knew that at some point I wanted to be mentored or taught by Jessica. And so I began my journey of becoming a certified spiritual coach through Jessica. And it was a year-long course. And through that year, I actually ended up getting my period back. And it really allowed me to go deep within myself and kind of, how I say, come fully back home to myself and really heal spiritually and energetically, like heal the parts of me that I had never healed before when I was overcoming eating disorders and disordered eating.
So prior to discovering your interest or your desire to become a spiritual coach, what action steps had you taken at that point to try and recover, if any?
To recover from HA,
Yeah.
I was never ever fully committed. I had never gone quote unquote all in. I think we're all
Mhm.
very familiar with the term of all in.
Maybe we're not though, because
Maybe
while I
not.
still figure out, because even though we had Nicola Renardi on the show, I didn't want her to dive too deep into the nitty gritty, because like people can get the book, but I do think it's important for us to just bring it up every so often, every few episodes, because I think it's going to come up every time. I think this would be a great opportunity to tell people what all in is.
Sure. All in's kind of what it sounds like, honestly. But basically, it's just like no limits, no restrictions, no rules, no structure, but it's really allowing yourself to fully eat when you're hungry, like no breaks. And according to Dr. Rinaldi, a minimum of 2,500 calories a day and very little exercise, no high intensity or like intense exercise. That would be what I would say is all in.
Yeah.
But I had never, and being consistent with that. I think that's important to say, right? Is actually being consistent with that, not doing
Yeah,
it.
it's easy to be like, today I'm all in, and then the next day you freak out and you go the other way. No, like you have to have been all in every day for a significant period of time to see
Yes.
results.
Yes. And like in my case, a year, right? I did
Mhm.
that for an entire year before actually getting my period back. And I know we'll probably talk more about that. But Of course, in 2018, before that moment of being like, wow, okay, I am so ready. Like, I know I need to do this. And before going all in, there were definitely many times throughout my journey where I was like, wow, I don't have my period. I know I need to do something about this, right? But it was always coming, and this is really interesting, and I think it's important for our listeners to know this. Every single time I like approached my HA in the past, like prior to going all in, I was always coming from this place of like trying to fix myself or seeing myself as like broken in some way. You know, I was lacking in some way. Whereas the difference between all those times and the time in 2018 when I was like, wow, okay, I'm just going all in, I really wanted to approach it differently. And I didn't come from a place of I need to change myself or fix myself or I'm lacking, I'm broken. And that's really significant because I know a lot of women do come from that mentality and they do see themselves as lacking or broken or that they need fixing. And I can guarantee you that when we shift our mindset and when we shift the place that we're coming from, everything can change for us.
I really like how strongly you identify with the inner healing part. So you had not really been able to see the progress you needed to see because you were really set on the fact that something was wrong with you. And I think this is important. A lot of people will resonate with this because the type of personality that comes with HA is the type of personality who like identifies with being perfect. And a lot of us get into this situation because we're so determined on like perfecting our health, right? And unfortunately, we just get a little confused and we think that health equals being smaller or eating really clean and all of these misconceptions about what wellness and health really is. So when HA or all in or half in or whatever isn't working, it's like that's really challenging our belief that we're doing everything right. And I talk about this a lot in some of the other episodes too, but like it's almost a cult like belief that restricting food, eating certain food groups, blah, 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 is like the right way. And when that's questioned, it's very confusing. It's offensive to our belief system. And we immediately go from thinking we're doing everything right to we're broken and we're doing everything wrong. And I'm still curious how you managed to differentiate in your own head, like, I'm not broken. I'm just like what? I don't know. Help
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. And I do want to put that in words. So, like I said in the past, I was always coming from this place. And I think energetically, we can feel like when we feel as though we need fixing or that we're broken or we're lacking, right? Like that's a feeling. You can feel how that feels in your body when you approach a situation and you're doing something because it's kind of like knowing your why, right? We hear that a lot is like, knowing your why as like an entrepreneur or whatever, right? And so in the past, my why was always kind of like, well, I'm broken, I'm not working, I need fixing. So this is why I need to do this. And because I approached HA recovery like that in the past, it was always very uncomfortable. I felt very like resistant to it. It didn't last. I wasn't consistent with it, right? But when we come from a place of loving, and that's what I teach all of my clients to do, when we come from this place of loving ourselves, everything changes like energetically. Like I'm sure as I'm even talking about this, you can feel that shift from coming from a place of lack or from a place of fixing yourself, and then switching that over to what if you approach this because you loved yourself or out of love for yourself, right? You don't need fixing. You're not broken. You're not lacking anything. You just need more loving. And so that's how I approached my HA recovery journey the final time to actually
Right.
get my period back. Does that make sense?
That does. It really started to click towards the end. So it's not necessarily that not, you're not focusing on the fact that you're broken or something's wrong. You're literally just giving yourself more love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as a result, you're like watering the plant and giving yourself the water. It has everything it needs in the soil. It's just needs some water.
Yeah. So here's another way to kind of think about it, right? So in HA recovery, most of us need to learn and come to accept the fact that we need to be eating more food, right? And in the past, when I was like approaching it from a place of fixing myself, it'd be like, okay, well, I have to eat potatoes with this meal, or I have to add more to this meal because I'm not getting my period back and I'm trying to get my period back. And it was very negative. It felt like a big struggle bus for me. It was something I had to do. But then when I ditched that mentality and came from this place of like, I'm not going to approach it that way anymore. My body actually needs more food to thrive. And this is what's going to make me feel better. And this is coming from a place of love. Like, I want to fuel my body properly. That was a huge shift for me, right? Rather than the past mentality. But yes, I love how you kind of put it before as well.
Yeah, there's so much. And you mentioned your clients and that this is a big piece of what you work on with them. So it makes sense, right? Eating and resting is technically easy. And we've talked about this before as well. It's the mental part that's hard. It's the spiritual part that takes the most work to be able to allow yourself to do the easy part. So, tell me more about what you do with your clients and what your practice is.
Yeah. So, like I said, I became a certified spiritual coach. But I think being spiritual or spirituality, or even the term spiritual coach, means a lot of different things for people, right? I was recently talking to someone, and it's kind of funny. They found out I'm a spiritual coach, and they were like, oh, yeah, I really want to get more into like tarot cards and card pulling and stuff like that. And I was like, that's really not what I do. I pull my like oracle cards for myself every morning just to kind of see, like, I have the wild unknown deck, right? So I pull a little like card, see what animal I pull every day, and it's fun. It's like a morning ritual for myself, but that's not the type of spiritual coach I am. So I really appreciate this question from you, just to clarify. So there's a lot of different ways that we can heal, right? There's a lot of different type of like therapy approaches. I'm not a therapist, but through the institute that I became a certified spiritual coach through, the way that we help our clients self heal is through self forgiveness and consciousness. So, what that means, and you and I talked about this in a previous episode on your other
Yeah.
podcast. Really, it's all about the misunderstandings that we made in our childhood or as children, right? In our past. What types of misunderstandings did we make about our body, about food, about us? Anything that's related to HA and the way you see yourself today. We weren't conditioned to hate our body, or we didn't enter the world hating our bodies, right? We were conditioned. We created these misunderstandings that led us to where we are today, that cause us to have these like really funky relationships with our body or unhealthy relationships with food. And what I do is I help my clients get to the root of those funky relationships with food and their body and help them break through those unhealthy behaviors and thoughts about themselves and food through self forgiveness, through consciousness and self awareness practices. So that's what I do. And it's really transformative work. Like I said, I mean, my very first eating disorder, so I battled anorexia 2 times in my life and orthorexia. So I've had 3 eating disorders in the past. And every single time I went through eating disorder recovery, never was this work included in my recovery. So I can kind of look back now and be like, wow, no wonder I was like relapsing all the time, because I actually wasn't getting to the root of my problem, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, okay. I love this. So it's like so many of our hangups and how we got here is just rooted from experiences so long ago. And we could go and heal our HA by eating more and resting less and eating more and resting more. But I mean, imagine doing that, but not fixing or working on per se on your dysfunctional thought processes. So you're like the same mind with the same beliefs and the same value systems based on these weird values and beliefs that you got as a 5-year old, a 10-year old, a 16-year old based on these like strange events that happened that you were too young to even like have control or process, and you're allowing those to drive your feelings later in life and your values later in life. So if you fix your, health issues, but you don't fix your beliefs and your values, and you don't forgive yourself or others for what you went through, when you say it like that, yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense that you wouldn't try to work on those things at the same time in order to create a lasting result, in order to accept to work through what's happening right now and to make sense of it all. Like, it makes sense on so many levels.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like, with my holistic nutrition brain, right? If someone has like a gut imbalance or something, and we just tell them, "Oh, just like eat a bunch of probiotics and you're going to start like having better bowel movements." It's like, "Okay, but what was the cause of an imbalanced gut flora in the first place?" Right? So, let's get to the root cause so it doesn't happen again.
It's just hard for a lot of people because they want like this tangible thing, and it's also hard for a lot of people, especially some listening might even raise an eyebrow still, where it's like my feelings just can't be related to like they just can't be physically manifesting within me,
Mhm.
but they totally can.
Mhm.
It's so ridiculously true. And the further you dive into how your emotions can manifest physically, I mean, like, you see it every day. If you think something is funny, you laugh. It's a physical reaction to a feeling you're having. So why wouldn't the same thing happen in other ways?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't thought of that before until just this second.
Big steps, girl. Mhm.
Okay, so I want to give you a hypothetical to help people understand a little bit more about how they might work with you if they came to you presenting HA symptoms. So maybe they know they don't have a period, and that's the only symptom they've got for you. So it could be one of many things, but what are the first things that you take a client or a potential client through?
Yeah, for sure. So if someone, and again, like all clients are different, right? I think every single one of my clients that comes to me, everyone's at a different place. Some of us are like so intuitive and we know exactly what our problem is, but we reach out to someone and we kind of almost need like that someone else telling us, like that confirmation from someone else. So it is important that I let you know that I do approach all my clients differently. But if all I really know about a client that's coming to me in this hypothetical situation and they just don't have a period, the really we lose our periods most often due to just too much stress. And most commonly, that too much stress equals too little food and over exercising. So, what I would chat with my client about is, what is their intake like? Do they feel like they're following any diets, or do they, you know, self impose some restriction on themselves? Do they have a history of eating disorders or disordered eating? That's really important. Even if they don't identify as someone with an eating disorder anymore, or even if they don't identify as someone like struggling with disordered eating anymore, that still could, if it was part of their history, that could still be playing a role in their life, just as it was mine, right? Because our body doesn't get to this place where it's feeling like super, super nourished and safe, because we never like fully allowed that to actually happen. So definitely like looking at that aspect of things, and then also what their movement or training or exercise routine is like, and how intense or what exactly it looks like, right? Because everyone's different. For me, it was very much the food thing. I majorly needed to increase what I was eating, but the way I was moving my body really didn't need to change all that much. But for some other people, it's completely opposite. They're eating a really great amount of food, but their exercise routine is just totally, overkill and going above and beyond what their body can tolerate. So, those are definitely the first two things that I look at. And once we identify what they are dealing with, my clients and I, like I said, every client's different, but usually that deeper work that you and I were talking about before, that comes afterwards once we kind of start working through things together.
Yeah, you like paint a picture of their life, where this is stemming from, I guess. Okay, so if you have somebody who has like a physical energy deficiency, right? So they're like physically exerting their body regularly with a lot of exercise, maybe a bit of underfueling. And then you have somebody who is just super stressed in their life. And so they're like in an emotional energy deficit. What's really the difference, if you even know? Like, do you deal with them both pretty similarly, or would they have very separate protocols?
No, girl, stress is stress, right? So, but if someone's more of like that emotional stress and someone's more of the physical stress, of course, the changes in their life are going to look different, right? So, the person that is exercising a lot, maybe they're running every single day, miles on miles every single day, we're going to want to dial that back extremely. And then the other person we're going to look at and see how we can really address that emotional and mental stress that they're dealing with. But what I do want to make clear is that stress is stress, right? We have this tendency in our world to really like write off that mental and emotional stress, and it's like, oh well, you know, I'm resting a lot and I'm not really working out, the stress can't be an issue for me, right? But they're really mentally and emotionally stressed. And I've seen it with many of my clients when they're able to, really address and support themselves and release that mental and emotional stress that they're dealing with. I've had a lot of clients get their period back from that without changing like the exercise component, because
Mm.
that's not the area of their life that was stressing them out.
Okay. So there's a lot of people listening who are going to be like, yeah, that's me. And maybe I would be like that as well, because I'm like, look, I'm in this quote unquote normal size body. I'm a healthy like weight for my height, blah, 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 blah. I don't feel like I'm that stressed, which is me. I never like feel that stressed, but I still don't have period. So I wanted to kind of clarify as well, how would someone personally, if they even can, identify like which category they fall into? Is there any like self-diagnosing tips between like, am I physically or am I emotionally draining myself? Which like side of the spectrum am I swaying more to?
Well, I do think in that situation, we'd actually have to look at your like physical activity, right? Like, are you doing physical activity,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, like can just objectively ask yourself, are you doing it? Yes, no. Okay.
Yeah, because some people literally have to full stop their exercise routines for a period of time so their bodies can feel safe enough. And I think that's another important place for me to remind you that this is temporary, right? I'm not saying that you would have to completely stop all exercise for the rest of your life. Movement is so important. But for healing, it's not always the best thing for us to heal. And it's temporary, right? And we just kind of have to look at like what's most important to us. Is getting our period back most important? Or is it going to the gym every day or going for a
Mhm.
run every day? Like, what's most important to you? You know, in the end,
Mhm.
what is most important to you? And to me, getting my period back every single month for the past year is like so awesome. And I wouldn't change anything, you know? So that's kind of what I would have that person, you know, if they're sitting there and are like, well, I'm not really sure if I'm more emotionally stressed or physically stressed from exercise. If they're doing any type of exercise and they're still not getting their period back, I would really challenge them to just stop and let's see what changes we see from there.
I love it. So you're definitely a support person for a client by the sounds of it. It's like meeting them where they're at really depends on the person, really depends on their specific situation and where they're exerting themselves as to like what their protocol should be. Which is cool, which is cool. So let's talk about then someone who's in the middle of their journey and they're on struggle street, because it's very up and down and like every day, good days, bad days, okay days, repeat. And I want to talk specifically body image, because I just think it's like one of, if not the biggest roadblock to people recovering. Without the body image issue, this would be way less of a topic. So, if someone's having a negative body image day during recovery, what is like a tip or two or a perspective shift or something that you like to share that can help people work through just like the day to day grind?
Yeah, I really love this question. And I think like the best thing that I can say in this episode that would actually give women something to like walk away with and really think about is like how much of your recovery, like how much of this are you making about your body? And I say this often, but I really do think that's what allowed me to really go so like gracefully or like flowy throughout my HA recovery, is because I didn't make it about my body, right? I see so many women like getting so hung up on how much they weigh, how their clothes are fitting, how they look in the mirror. And it's like, but what if you just didn't make it about that? What if you just made your HA recovery about getting your period back? And like whatever happens to your body happens. You know, our energy goes where our focus goes, or whatever the saying is, right? So it's like if you're focusing on your body so much, like that's constantly what you're going to be, like where your energy is going to be going towards, and you're always going to be focusing on your body. So I would ask, how much of this journey are you really making about your body, and how much of it are you actually making about just getting your period back and getting healthy again, right? Like, what's that ratio? And I would bet that if you're really struggling with body image issues, you're probably putting a lot of focus on what's happening to your body, right? Because if that's not where you were focused, then it really wouldn't be much of an issue for you. Having said that, even though I did not make my HA recovery journey about my body, yeah, there were still days where I was like, oof, like I am so uncomfortable today. I just like don't even know what to do, right? We are going to have those days, but when you make it about getting your period back versus what's happening to your body, those days are going to be really, really minimal, like I experienced.
Yeah, it's like
So
less of them.
way less of them, girl. Like honestly, I loved HA recovery. I look back at like pictures because I was very open about it on Instagram, and I look back at that year of going through HA recovery because it was a whole year for me, and I was like, wow, that was such a great year. Like it was just, I really enjoyed it. It wasn't like this super uncomfortable year where all I can think about was struggling with my body, because I never made it about my body, right? So a lot of women step on the scale. Girls, you need to stop doing that. I did not do that one time. I did that before HA recovery and right when I got my period back, just because I really wanted to see like what I accomplished that year. And as a practitioner, I kind of wanted that knowledge or that data to know like what some of my clients might need to do, right? I wanted to know what I had to do in order to fully heal. So don't step on this scale throughout recovery. And also, like, how much time are you spending in the mirror? Honestly, how much time are you spending in front of the mirror?
Yeah.
A lot? Yeah, you're gonna have body image issues for sure. And then also your clothes. Okay, this is a big one. If your clothes are making you feel super uncomfortable, yeah, you're gonna feel uncomfortable. And you are probably gaining some curves, and your body's feeling a little different. And so the clothes from before might not be feeling the same way as they did before. So, I mean, I started wearing like Scott's clothes, just like baggier clothes, and that's okay. Just make sure you're comfortable. And if you're not, like, I work from home, right? You and I are sitting at home in our home offices right now. And it doesn't really matter what I wear at work, but if you are in an environment where you do need to dress nice for work, go out and buy yourself a little bit of a new wardrobe that's actually comfortable, because like we are living in these vessels that are our bodies, and I think that's like part of self-care is like dressing ourselves nice, um so we feel really good about ourselves, you know? We deserve to feel good in our bodies. And part of that is like wearing clothes that actually allow us to feel comfortable.
Yeah, I took that step, so I can definitely attest to just getting like flowy, comfortable things that feel good. But even still, like, then I found that in my bigger body, baggy clothes didn't suit me because sometimes baggy clothes do the opposite of of hiding things. So
Oh yeah.
I started like embracing the tighter stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you like power pose it, right? You just walk with the good posture, and people aren't thinking, oh, she let herself go or something, like whatever it is you have in your head that people are saying. they don't. It's really, people worry about you when you start to look sick. So just sit with that for a sec.
Mhm.
Now, I want to know why, if you can share, if you even know the answer to this, but like what made you share all of this?
I think it has to do with what my parents told me. Remember, everything that we do and think about ourselves today all has to do with childhood and like what we were told as children, right? And when I experienced my first eating disorder when I was 10 years old, I really didn't like naturally, I really didn't have a problem sharing about it, you know. I had some family members, like I'm an only child, so not my mom and dad, but like other family members that were kind of like awkward around it. And I was just kind of like, why are they so like weird around this? Like, you know, it's okay to talk about. I was never like ashamed about it. But when I was growing up, there was a couple other girls that were clearly struggling with an eating disorder when I was in elementary school. And my parents just encouraged me, you know, like maybe you should talk to her just so she knows that you went through the same thing. And they were always just encouraging me to be really open about my story because what they would say is like you never know who you're going to help someday. And I think that always like stuck with me. And I mean, I'm just an open book, you know me. Like I've been sharing my story. I've been like blogging since, you know, back when blogging was actually like a cool thing to do Monday through Sunday. Like I used to be one of those bloggers. And I was just always sharing my story. So I think when it came to me getting my period back, and also I'm like the queen of having weird conversations, you know, like normalizing conversations that aren't normally had. And so it's like there's not many of us talking about not having a period and like gaining weight and getting our period back and what that is and embracing like our curves and stuff like that. Those are all conversations that not a lot of women are having these days. And I love having conversations like that and just creating that opportunity for other women to start thinking a new way. So I think that's, you know, why I share my story as openly as I do.
Love it. And I just resonate with so much of that as well. I wasn't raised like you were to share my story. It was more of like a brave do something differently moment for me, but I mean it just opens so many doors when you're willing to share even about this kind of thing. And one of the reasons why I ask, besides the fact that I'm just asking everyone because I want people to know the benefits of sharing your story, which is right now HA is such a non-talked about conversation that it just needs awareness. So it needs people to talk about it. Two, it's like ridiculous that it's taboo. It just doesn't make any sense. And three, I got a DM today from a girl who had a long question to ask. And she basically was like, I've been doing everything right. You know, I'm eating the things, I'm not doing all of the things. And I still don't have period back. Like, can I get some advice? And I actually asked her, like, hey, this is a really good and super common question. Would you be down to come on the podcast and like we'll talk about this with you because it will apply to so many people? And basically, my advice was going to be like, you haven't looked into nutrient deficiencies yet and potentially haven't done the inner work. So it was like, easy question to answer at that point. But she didn't want to because she was worried about being identified by someone. And it was really important to her that she's like, I haven't told anyone that I know that this is happening to me, et cetera, et cetera. And I really wanted to be like, why does that matter to you? So there's a lot of people out there that perhaps have shame around this. Like maybe they grew up in a household where you just don't talk about that. Maybe they're in one of those cultures where at that time of the month it's like impure. I don't like, it could be so many things, but I want to normalize sharing it at this time.
Yeah, girl. I know. I
Yeah.
remember actually when I got, so I kind of forget like who follows me on Instagram, and I think that probably helps me be like
Oh,
super open, you know? And I remember when I got my period back last summer, again, like I said, I'm an only child, but I'm really close with my cousins, and I have an older guy cousin. And I went to go stay at his house like that weekend, and he lives with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend and I are really close. And when I walked into their place, she gave me this huge hug and she was like, "Congrats, I'm so proud of you." And then my cousin was like, what happened? And then we both looked at him and he was like, oh right, I know what you're talking about. And he was like, yeah, congrats. And it was just so funny. But
yeah.
it's, I think that's like a really funny story, and I kind of forgot about that until
Yeah,
now. But it's like we just need to normalize these conversations because
we
there's nothing
do.
wrong with talking about
And
periods.
we all have those like aunties and uncles that are following us on our social that are just going to be like, what the hell? I totally, my parents' friends all follow me and they all tell my parents what I've been doing. And they're like, did you know your daughter's like drawing all this art and like things my parents don't know about any of it? And that's how they find out. But like when I go back home and I see them, it is kind of weird because they're just of a generation where it's just super freaking strange that weight gain is being normal. Like I'm one of the people like saying weight gain is normal, saying that you should have your period, like all things that in the 80s or 90s or even like 70s and stuff you did not freaking talk about. So they think I'm a total alien. Every single person listening has those people like following them. And so I just want to reassure you, yep, you just sometimes you see them once a year or something like that and they make a comment and it's like kind of awkward and then it's over.
Hey, they can stop following me if they want, right? Like, I think every single time I've had my period since I got it back in August of last year, I have announced on Instagram that I have my period. And I just kind of like forget, like I said, who's following me. I just totally don't think about it. And then I see these people often, and it's like, oh, I guess they probably know. Like, even my boyfriend's
Mm,
friends follow me, on Instagram. I'm like,
yeah.
oh, that's kind of weird that they know this stuff about me, but it's not at the same time, right? Because again, it's just like a normal thing that happens to
Yeah.
men.
Yeah, and look, being somebody who's trying to make change in any way is going to
Mm-hmm.
be a little uncomfortable. Like the whole point is that you're talking about something that people don't know about. And being at the forefront of something is really, there's a reason that not a lot of like that someone paves the way for something that no one else has done before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay, guys, ladies, to chat about it. I've had a lot of fun just meeting people who have been impacted by it and educating guys on it, and just it's just cool.
It's how
Periods are
you and I
cool.
met.
Yes, it is. Oh, so many awesome friends. So, like,
So many.
oh yeah, periods bring girls together.
Yeah.
Funny that.
Who would have thought?
I know. Thank you so much for this episode. I'm so freaking pumped for people to hear your perspective on the importance of like working on your inner shit. It's so important. It's so different to a lot of the other, like every other interview they do, every one of them brings up the mindset piece, but it's your specialty, I feel, and it's like your focus. So if anyone listening really feels like that's the piece for them that they need the support with, I would really encourage them to find Meg Doll.
Thanks, Dani. That means so much to me.
Of course. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, that's definitely my favorite place to be on social media. So I am Meg Doll over there. Easy to find. And my website is megdoll.com if you want to find me over there. And then I guess I do have a podcast called the Unbreakable You Podcast.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
Dani's been on there. Yeah.
Yeah, if you like this show, you'll like that show.
Hmm.
For sure. For sure. And she has a bunch of episodes on HA as well. So you could just like continue down the rabbit hole. Very thankful for people like you putting things out there about it, because there's just not a lot out there about it.
Thanks, Dani. Yeah, well, this podcast is amazing.
It's just so funny to me. Okay, cool. Bye, everyone. Love y'all. Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much, because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women